Welcome in, everybody, to the UCR Basketball Show presented by Fire and Vine. My name's Jacob Vincent. That's Noah McKay. And it's been a while since we've talked some basketball. And finally, after the Christmas holiday, after the New Year's holiday, last night, we're back and we're ready to chat some basketball because there's been a lot going on these last couple of weeks. And we got a lot to break down. Of course, throughout the show tonight, we'll bring you the UC Top 5 on the girls' side and on the boys' side. We'll break down some of the happenings across girls' basketball, across boys basketball, and we'll let you know about our broadcast games upcoming this weekend and into early next week as well. First of all, hope everyone had a Merry Christmas. Hope everyone had a safe New Year's last night. Noah, it's good to be talking basketball again.
It is. I'll echo that. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year, everybody. New Year, same UCR, baby. Let's go. We're going to have a lot of fun. I am very glad to be into January. For in our line of work, the last 2 weeks of December suck. Sans a few days in Florida where it wasn't much like work. We
Right.
are all over creation, and
You
it'll be
went to
fun.
Columbus for one of those days.
We're not going to talk about that. Although I
Hey,
feel a little
it looked
vindicated.
as I say,
I
it looks
feel
a
a little
little better
vindicated.
now.
I do, but it will be nice to drive within, about an hour radius
Yeah,
for a couple of months
yeah,
and have some games with a lot more implications on
right.
them. We're going to have a lot of fun tonight. It's going to be a raucous crowd, I'm sure, tuning in. So comment along with us. All the games are done. Now
That's
we
right.
get to talk a little ball.
We are live on Facebook and YouTube. Wherever you're watching, please like the stream, comment along with us, let us know where you're watching from and what games you're looking forward to, either upcoming or something that you saw these last couple of days. And make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel as well. If you have not done so already on YouTube, you can search Upper Cumberland Reporter, and it should pop up that we are live and ready to go. Of course, the UCR Basketball Show presented by Fire and Vine. You see them right up there. There it is, right there, right in the middle of our screen. Yeah, there you go. And as we get going, we want to also shout out our all-inclusive sponsors for making everything that we do here at UCR possible. Of course, Sonia Brown with American Way Real Estate, Club Wyndham, The Real Estate Collective, Hall Sports and Outdoors, Tee Up in Baxter, Fire and Vine, Amonette's Eagle Auction and Realty, Nelson Trophy and Screen Printing, Watson Chevy, as you're watching it right here on the Watson Chevy UCR Media Network, The Quality Family, Domino's, The Crouch Team with Highlands Elite Real Estate, and Swallows Insurance. All of those businesses, sponsors, make everything that we do here at UCR possible. The broadcast, the game stories, the photos, the videos, everything that we do, they make possible.
And Livingston Regional Hospital.
And
Upgrades.
Livingston
They've been
Regional
with us
Hospital. There we go.
forever. And I was like, you know what? We're just going to give them a free upgrade to the all-inclusive tier. So we appreciate them. They've been with us for a long, long time. So them as well. And that's a little, I surprised Jacob with that. So I want to make sure
There you go.
I had that one in as well. But thank you to all the all-inclusives and everybody else. And I'll give my quick spiel. Should be advertising with us for the next couple of months. Now is when it really picks up a little bit in our world.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun as we get into district plays now, and there's a lot of other districts around the state that have already played a couple of games. Our districts smartly do not play before the Christmas holiday, and that's obviously kind of been changed these last couple of years. But all of our districts play after the Christmas holiday, after the New Year, and whenever they get back into January. And I think it's great that they do that because teams are much more fresh and ready to go and used to playing with each other, and you have much better basketball at the start of district play when you do play in January. Okay, before we get going, if you're watching on Facebook, make sure you hit that share button. You can also share it on YouTube as well. You can share it to Facebook if you want to, but make sure you like the stream and comment along with us. We're going to start it off with the UC Girls Top 5. We'll give a little bit of a precursor here. A lot of these tournaments that are played down in Florida, the ones that we are not at, obviously, we can't put a lot of stock in those. The tournaments that we were at, Noah was calling the tournament in Greenville this weekend that Upperman was playing in. We know that was a loaded tournament. Cookeville was playing down in Gatlinburg a couple of weeks ago. We know that's a loaded tournament. The Frank's Christmas Shootout, we were there. We know that's a loaded tournament. We know some of these tournaments hold more value than others. So take some of these with a grain of salt as well. We'll also tell you our top 4 is really, 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 really good. And the number 5 team is also really good and will be a lot better coming up in about a month or so. Should we start at number 1 or number 5?
Yeah, I'll just reiterate and just say we have kind of a long standing. If you go back to this show last year and a year before, we are not going to have a big movement based on losses, especially in Christmas tournaments.
Mhm.
It's a different sort of, especially you get down into Florida, you have that vacation atmosphere to a little bit. We don't know some of these teams, like you said, the games that we call that we're doing more research into, we have a better idea, but a lot of these games, and quite frankly, a lot of these rankings are a little bit hairy. Sometimes you'll have a Max Preps team that's ranked fifth in this state in their class, and then we'll see them play and we'll go, that wouldn't hold water here.
Mhm.
And conversely, you have the opposite effect some other places. So a team like York Institute probably has the inverse, right? Some team out of Florida loses to York, and everyone went, they were 9-5. Well, we know how good York is, despite what a record may or may not say. So just keep that in mind with this. I got into a big back and forth with somebody because they ticked me off on the comment section. And we'll talk about each team separately as we go through. But the overarching theme here is we're much more concerned with what happens this next week when we get into district play
Mhm.
than what happened the last 2 weeks in these holiday tournaments.
So we'll bring you the top five, and then we'll also break down all of these teams even more so later on in the show once we're done with the top fives as well. We'll start with number five, the York Institute Dragonettes, back into the UC top five after playing some really good basketball over the holiday break. 10-5 on the season. They have won 6 out of their last 8. 2-1 at the Frank's Christmas Shootout. 2-1 down at Gulf Shores this past weekend. Playing some really good ball, and again, doing all of this without Reese Beatty. They're learning to play without the top player in the state. Guess what? She is coming back in about a month or so. So this York team could very well keep moving up those
Yeah,
rankings.
absolutely. And if you would have told me a month ago that York was going to be 10-5,
Hmm.
I would have been really surprised at that because they played a great schedule.
Yeah, they played
Coach
a
Green and I were talking about it
tremendous game.
before the season started about how difficult this schedule is. And would they maybe have made that difficult of a schedule if they had known Reese Beatty wasn't going to be in? But I think it's a net huge positive that you've seen Rayleigh Warner really take a big step forward. You've seen Addie McElhaney transfer in. She's starting to be kind of that second leading scorer night in and night out. We know the skill set Emma Cooper has. I think you've seen these girls rise to the level of their competition. And when you get the best player in the state back into district tournament play, that could be a huge boost. It's a team that's going to need a huge boost because this district is a lot more difficult than it
Yeah.
has been in recent years.
Whew.
Smith County good, Watertown all of a sudden seems like they've got
Much
some
better.
real
Yeah.
pieces there. They're very well coached now. So York at 5 on this list. I didn't think they'd be on this list till Reese got back. They are. Credit to Coach Green. Credit to the players. They're playing really well there in Jamestown right now.
We saw them play that game against Bearden, a game that they actually led for about 90% of that game until very late. Bearden, of course, a tremendous player, Natalia Hodge, able
Yep.
to pretty much take over in the end and win that game. So they're at this number 5 spot right now. Emma Pyle has also been shooting the basketball really well, and I think she's kind of been their leading scorer here these last few ball games. And Casey was actually down in Florida or down in Gulf Shores, and he actually went and covered their last game against Vestavia Hills. Is that how you say it?
I don't
Out of
even.
Alabama, also a very good basketball team. They ended up
Yes.
losing that game, but a very good game. And by just a few points, they had a chance to tie or take the lead late in that one. So York Institute back into the top 5 at our number 5 spot. The Cookeville Lady Cavaliers up here at the number 4 spot, dropping down to this number 4 spot, 9-3 on the year, coming off of the Watertown Championship as they won that game in a defensive battle in the championship game, but able to get the job done. Main reason, they lost a couple of games down in Gatlinburg. Now, again, very, very good teams in Moore County and Lincoln County after beating a very good Loretto team. So, again, our top 4 teams are
Really good.
very, very, very good. And an interesting note, and probably one that the Lady Cavalier fans don't want to hear, the 2 losses that they suffered down in Gatlinburg is the first time that this team has suffered 2 losses in a row since the 2020-2021 season. It just tells you how good of
Yeah.
a job Coach Gillis has done with this program, because it has been literally 4 seasons. None of these players had ever lost 2 games in a row, and it happens in Gatlinburg against 2 very good teams. They obviously bounce back and win the Watertown Championship this past weekend.
It's a bonker stat. I mean, that's just crazy because 2 in a row is not bad.
No.
It's not like, oh, they haven't lost 4 in a row. Okay, sure. 2 in a row is crazy. It's a testament, like you said, to the success. And yeah, listen, went to Gatlinburg, playing a really tough tournament,
Hmm.
lost a couple of games. Maybe they could win them if they played them again. Maybe they wouldn't. Those are good teams. It's not a bad loss there. We talked a lot about that earlier.
And they were close games
I
too.
think this is where they were in that last poll we had right before we went into the 2 weeks off for the holiday. So they didn't do anything to move up, but they didn't move anything to fall down, certainly. I mean, this to me, I think you agree, for now, until number one gets back to Jamestown, this top four, they may be in a different order,
Hmm.
but this is pretty firmly the top four.
Yeah.
These four have cemented themselves on top of our area at the moment. So, it's a Cookeville team, very good. They obviously have the downside of the classification that they play in, being the 4A class. They got a good Lebanon team in their district that, of course, has been the battle. Stewart's Creek hanging around there as well this year. We saw them kind of become upstart last year. Really like the emergence of Macy Hudson on the offensive side. She's always been kind of the intangible player, the player who does everything well, but maybe doesn't score a lot. All of a sudden, Macy Hudson is scoring a lot, and it's a huge boost for this team. And she's shooting an absurd, she doesn't shoot a lot of threes, but she's
She's
shooting an
shooting like
absurd percentage from 3-point land.
Yeah, she's shooting like 60% from 3-point land. I'd have to go double check it because she did miss a few later on in the fourth quarter of their game against Watertown. But going into the game against Watertown, she was 15 of 24 from downtown and hit 3 threes in the third quarter. I think she went something like 3 for 6 maybe in the ball game, maybe 3 for 7. So dropped her percentage just a little bit, but still shooting the basketball really well. And that was a time that they really needed some points that she was able to knock down 3 triples in that game. So and that was a good win against Watertown. I mean, that was a much better Watertown team from a year ago. You look at the schedule, it was 12-1. Now they're 12-2 with the loss to Cookeville. Hadn't really played a whole lot of teams, but they played Cookeville really well. But the Lady Cavaliers defensively are just as good as anybody in the
Yeah,
area.
and last note on that real quick, Watertown is not a great matchup for Cookeville because of the
Hmm.
big
They
that
got
they
a lot of
have.
size.
Because of the big that they have. So, Cookeville should beat Watertown. I'm not going to stand here and be like, signature win for
Hmm.
Cookeville,
Hmm.
but not a great matchup for them, and they found a way to win that
Yep.
basketball game in a tournament. So, decent win for them there. And again, I know a lot of Cookeville Lady Cav fans will think they should be higher on the list. I'm not saying you have a bad
You
argument.
can, yeah, you can
Yeah,
make
I'm
the
not saying you
argument.
have a bad argument, but really, for all four of these teams, I think if you are a fan of that team, you could say we should be the number one team.
100%.
And we're just going to make the decision for now.
Yeah.
And that's
we,
just the way that it is.
yeah. I mean, we could argue to the cows come
Yeah,
home
we just made a decision.
what the actual rankings are. Because I was just going to say, these top four, you could really put them in any order and
Yeah,
you wouldn't be wrong.
yeah.
But this is what we've decided to go with. So Cookeville is
And
at
it's
number
our
four.
show, dang it. So
That's
it's
right.
what we're going with.
The White County Warriorettes enter at the number 3 spot, 14-2 on the year, of course, winning the Frank's Christmas Shootout in a loaded girls bracket, beating Bearden in the championship game of that. They went 2-1 down in Sandestin, down in Florida. So playing some really good basketball. And that win against Bearden was a really good win. It was the first loss of the year for Bearden, and then they went to Greenville this past weekend and lost again down there. But it's a really good Bearden squad. It was a really good win for White County, and a big reason that they're at this number 3 spot.
Yeah, Bearden certainly entrenched in the top 5 of 4A in Tennessee. There's a clear number 1 in 4A, and then you could
Yeah,
put a few teams in a hat behind them.
yeah.
Nobody's beaten Bradley Central again. It's great when you can recruit. Regardless, textbook what we were talking about early in the show. We're going to put a lot more stock into the Frank's Christmas Shootout. We know all about those games. We call all we broadcast those games. That was a great tournament win for them, and a tournament they have not won recently. That's
Hmm.
kind of the running joke. I
Yeah.
know the Bearden people were up in arms about, White County got favorable officiating. White County does not typically win that tournament, which is a credit to Coach Dodge in bringing in the level of competition that he brings in to that tournament. That was a great tournament win. And conversely, and yes, it was a Sparta fan that was chirping at me in the comments. So we're not going to put a lot of stock into the Florida tournament where they lost to a team out of Kentucky that I have no clue where even in Kentucky they're from. No clue. You're on the beach somewhere. I don't care that Sparta lost that game. I really don't. Doesn't move the needle for me one iota. I'm looking at what they did last week, beating Bearden in that tournament, and I look at them beating Bearden and say, if you can do that, you have a chance to go on a long, long run in Class 3A. So love where Sparta's at right now. We understand the state of District 7 AAA. We understand that it certainly looks like there are 2 teams that are going to go to war, and that is not a slight at some others who can beat them. Livingston, I'm talking about you. Stone Memorial, I'm talking about you. Cumberland County off a win over Gatlinburg Pittman, talking about you. We know how good this district is, but Sparta looks as good as anybody, as big of a threat as anybody to make significant noise in Class 3A this season.
So the White County Warriorettes at this number 3 spot, 14-2 on the
By the
season.
way, Bella Winningham with a double-double in one of those games down in Florida.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
Good.
That's an effort double-double
Pretty
because
good.
Bella Winningsham's not the biggest girl on the floor, and she's getting more double-digit rebounds. That's a good sign for Sparta if she's crashing the boards.
The Pickett County Lady Bobcats enter at the number 2 spot, 11-2 on the year, and picked up a couple of really nice wins in Knoxville a couple of weekends ago against Farragut, and Knox Webb blew out Farragut,
Yep.
beat Knox Webb pretty handily, and played Morristown East really close. I think it was a 4-point ball game, and then beating Midway and Kingston very easily last weekend. I mean, this Pickett County team, uh, they're really, really good.
Yep.
I mean, they are really, really good. There are no holes in this team offensively. They'll get after you defensively. They speed you up. This Pickett County team, again, they could be at your number 1 spot in this rankings.
Yeah, if they would have beat Morristown East, I think they probably would have been.
Yeah.
Very close, which number 1's Upperman, and we'll get to them. But Pickett County, I think, totally agree with what you said. Very, very good. Elite. The favorites right now, bar none, in Class 1A.
Mm-hmm.
And you see them, as we talked about, Callie Reeder got in there. Everything fell into place for them. And they just have been really, really good since then. The win over Webb by double digits.
Huge.
Now, Webb is as talented as any team in this state. They're not in our coverage area. We both scratch our heads sometimes watching Webb at the rotations that they go out with.
And we've seen them, 3 times now,
yes.
I think.
They should have probably won the tournament in Greenville, which is such a tough tournament to go and win. They made the championship game and that lost to a team at Amaris that may be one of the better teams, public school teams in the country. They are that good of a team down there, that team out of Georgia. Webb is that talented.
Mm-hmm.
Despite the coaching questions we have about Webb, for Pickett to go there in that tournament, it was a neutral. Maybe
it was at Knox Webb.
It was in that tournament that was all over the place in Knoxville. And win that game by double digits, maybe the best win on the board for any team on the board. It's right there with Sparta's win over Bearden. Great win. Morristown East, good basketball team.
Yep.
Upperman obviously lost to them. And so when you compare the two resumes, because this was the first time we had a conversation in a while about changing number 1, and Pickett County had an argument. Couple of things, the reasons it didn't. Ultimately, we're going to lean on holiday tournament losses do not hold as big a weight. The teams that Upperman lost to, they lost 2 games in Greenville. One team is the defending Class 5A state champion out of Arkansas that returned 4 starters, has the new starter is a freshman point guard with 22 Power 4 offers. They have 3 Division I signees, which means they have 4 Division I players on the floor at one time. That's not a bad loss. And Upperman led in the 4th quarter against that team. And the other team is the defending Class 2A state champion out of Alabama, who has, from everything I gathered, the best player in the state of Alabama. And Upperman played their worst game. We don't hold a ton of weight against him, just like we're not going to hold the Morristown East lost in that tournament against Pickett County. Other than that, the resumes are pretty similar between these two teams. Upperman hangs on to the number 1 spot. But, man, if you are in Class 1A, the last group of girls I want to see getting off the bus are the Pickett County Lady Bobcats, because they can drop 100 on you. They can play really good defense. The only question I have with Pickett County, Jacob, if they get into foul trouble, it kind of popped up against Midway, very poorly officiated basketball game, and Midway couldn't hang. If they're in a region championship, if they're in a state tournament game especially, because their path is so good, even if a Clark Range gets them in a district tournament, as long as it's not an elimination game, they're going to go to to the state tournament. What happens if a couple of these guards pick up 3 fouls? That is my only concern, because they only dress 8 girls. And so if they avoid that, they can shine up another one and ship it to Birdstown, as far as I'm concerned with Pickett County.
And listen, Emma Tompkins has been really good off the bench.
Yep.
They also bring in Kylie Wood off the bench as well. So, and those are 2 good bench players that will come on and play at the guard position. But like you said, their size is Callie Reeder, and we saw how crucial she is to this team at the start of the season against Smith County, a team that's got size. They struggled against them. Now, Smith County shot the absolute lights out in that first half, and then Pickett County did make their way back into it and tied it up late in the second half. But that was a really good win for Smith County at the time, and it still is. But we saw how crucial Callie Reeder is to this team. And again, we'll talk more about this coming up later on after we unveil the UC Boys top 5. But yeah, this Pickett County team,
Really
They're
good.
really, really good. So once again, our UC girls top five. Upperman remains at the number one spot. Pickett County is up to number two. White County at number three. Cookeville at four, and the York Institute Dragonettes back into the UC top five at
What
number five.
one thing about the top spot because I meshed them together there for Upperman. One of the crazier stats, and I don't know if this has happened for teams I've covered recently. I'm sure it's happened. A 3-game stretch where 3 different girls score over 30 points.
It's
Now,
impressive.
one of those games was an absolute cupcake. West Green is horrible. Horrible. Their record was pretty good. They were above 500 somehow entering that game. Horrible. That being said, Sadie South did hit 10 threes in that game, which was a tournament record there in that tournament.
It's pretty
But
good.
the Lenti 34 and the Gracie Butler 33, the 33 came against a real team in Florida.
Mhm.
Candace Parker's niece is on that team. They're going to win the 6A state championship likely in the state of Florida. That's a real basketball team. They have a level of balance this year offensively that they haven't had in recent years. And Maggie Butler's really coming into her own. And the change of Ava May Allen into the starting lineup, Cora Bass off the bench is playing her best basketball as a Lady B. She seems very comfortable in that role. She started hitting threes all of a sudden. I'll put a bow on it with this because I dig into the big debate. And I'm not going to get into the nonsense that I'm not going to give the time of day to. I already did about which team I like. I went to Franklin High School in El Paso, Texas. Okay. Just to be clear, I want them to win every game. uh, both teams they lost to in Greenville would be the number one teams on this top five. If you dropped them, put them in our area, they'd be the walkaway number one team. We wouldn't have a discussion about it. Keep that in mind. Not all wins and losses are the same. A lot of these teams on this top five, especially in this top four, got some great freaking wins the last 2 weeks.
Let's move on to the boys' side. The UC boys top five here on the UCR Basketball Show, presented by Fire and Vine. My name's Jacob Vincent. That's Noah McKay. If you haven't done so already, hit the share button on Facebook. Make sure you like the stream and drop a comment. You can do that also on YouTube. Like the stream and drop a comment. Let's talk about the boys' side. We'll start at this number five spot. The Pickett County Bobcats at number five, 9-4 on the season. Fell to Kingston again, 68-46. They are 4-2 in their last 6 games, but have lost to Kingston both those times. It's a really, really good Kingston team that's going to do some damage at the 2A level. And Pickett County they can't match up with the size and the athleticism that this Kingston team has. But this Pickett County team is playing some good basketball.
Absolutely. We feel pretty good about the top 3 on this list. Kind of like on the girls, we feel really good about the top 4, that they've kind of supplanted themselves up there. But Pickett County is playing good basketball right now. 2 losses to a good Kingston team, a Kingston team that I think would have a chance to beat most teams in our area, maybe outside of the top 2 on this list. I think our top 2 would be pretty heavy favorites against them. Everybody else, Kingston could absolutely play with. They're a very explosive offensive team. Pickett County had a really important thing against Midway. Cole Eminette started hitting a bunch of threes, hit 5 threes in a quarter. And I went, ooh, that's big. Jacob Eminette didn't play his best offensive game. Part of that was they were harassing him up and down the floor. I mean, grabbing him every time he was anywhere. But other people started making shots. And we kind of talk about Nathaniel Cobb a lot with Pickett County, rightfully so. But when Cole Eminette starts raining in threes and just takes some attention away from the other scorers on the floor, it's a big, big deal for this team. If he can make shots, or if Lyric Paris can make some shots and just provide them points like they did in that game, that's when Pickett is their most dangerous. We know they're really well coached. They are not the most athletic Pickett County team over the last 10 years, but I like what they're doing there, and they feel like the kind of team that's going to continue to get better throughout the season. Had a rough stretch. Played some tough teams. That Eagleville team is really good. This Kingston team is really good. Feels like the Pickett County team that can beat anybody on any given night, but maybe the ceiling isn't quite as high as it has been in recent years, but they're still dangerous. And if Cole Eminette's running shots like that, they're very dangerous on any given night.
Yeah, we'll talk about their schedule and a little bit more coming up in just a little bit. So Pickett County at number 5, the Cookeville Cavaliers at number 4 suffered 3 losses down in Florida, and I chuckle a little bit. They're 7-6 now on the season because they were in every single game. They lost in overtime by 7. They lost another game by 4, and then their last game by 6, all against pretty good squads. Them and Stone Memorial actually played the same team down in Florida, and they both lost that one. Stone lost it by 5 or by 7 as well, 69 to 62 to Montgomery Academy out of Alabama, who is 15-1 on the year. So again, for Cookeville, 3 losses, but with a little bit of research, not bad losses in those 3 losses. And again, we don't put a ton of stock into these, especially the Florida tournaments that we were not able to go see. So Cookeville is at this number 4 spot.
Yeah, the record is not the best record on the list, but exactly like you said, if they had gone down and gotten just shellacked in those 3 games, maybe we have a different discussion. They're competitive in
They
all
also
3.
won the Frank's Christmas Shootout, by the way,
And
beating White County.
now the field on the boys' side was not the same as the field on the girls' side, but
Correct.
they won it. And Cookeville and Sparta played.
And it
And
was
the
a
world
great
didn't
game.
explode.
It was a tremendous
It
game.
was, and the world didn't explode. Let's keep doing that. Because it's a good game to play. Play your rivals every year in
Tripinian
every
went
sport.
ballistic.
Absolutely. So I'm not relenting on my keep an eye on Sparta thing. There you see the glimpses. The real
They've
season
played an
starts now.
insane schedule these
Yes.
last couple of weeks,
And
too.
the real season starts now for Sparta. Just remember, I will have the text message receipts if they go on any sort of a run. But regardless, that was good for Cookeville to get that. We're not worried about what happened in Florida, and that you stay right where you were, as far as I'm concerned, before our last show 2 weeks ago.
So our top 3 remains unchanged. Jackson County at number 3, Stone Memorial at number 2, and Upperman at number 1. Jackson County fell in their first game of the season. They went 1-1 down in Florida. That was before the Christmas holiday. Stone Memorial 12-4. They've won 4 of their last 5. Lost on Monday to Montgomery Academy out of Alabama, the same team that beat Cookeville this past weekend, 69 to 62. Upperman 10-2 on the year. Lost 2 out of their last 3 games. They lost to Stewart's Creek and Franklin after beating a good Hickman County team in that first game in Franklin, and then also lost in the championship game down in Tampa Bay before that 2 weekends ago.
Yeah, absolutely. So Jackson County, undefeated in this state. I don't care about what happens in Florida. Stone Memorial, losing to Montgomery Academy, does nothing for me. They're playing good basketball. And Upperman, first time I got to say this year, the one get out of jail free card. We deliver one, and you can go back if you're a long-time watcher. You know, the teams we know are good, right? We all understand whether you think X is better or not. We all think Upperman's a good basketball team. We all think Stone Memorial is a good basketball team, right? On the girls' side, we all think our top 5 are all really good basketball teams. You get one. Weird stuff happens. Get out of jail free card that I don't hold against you. That's the Stewart's Creek game.
Yeah.
Team was clearly beat up. Now, the loss in Florida, I don't say this lightly, and I've been really good. They got screwed in Florida. Okay. They played South Gwinnett, which is a really good team out of Georgia, great team out of Georgia. And you can ask me off air. They got screwed. Okay. I'll just draw your attention towards they have a lead under a minute to go. Bronsden Chaffin catches a pass just inside half court before he moves a muscle. Travel, and we go the other way. They got screwed out of that game. So I wouldn't care anyway. Even if they had lost it clean, they got screwed. The Stewart's Creek game, not good. And we kind of talked about this. They have a 2-game stretch here. Now they get 4 days off. They got a 2-game stretch where they should blow out the 2 teams they play. Lenore City on Friday, Creekwood on Saturday. If they don't, you may have a new number 1 next week. Because Stone Memorial's playing really good basketball. And how about the year these 2 kids are having? To me, have just planted themselves into the ground as the top 2 Mr. Basketball candidates.
Oh,
in
yeah.
Cade Caps and Ty Cobb. My God, these 2 boys are playing unbelievable basketball right now. And I cannot wait for them to play each other. These have been the number 1 and number 2 ranked teams the entire season, and we are getting closer and closer to a Stone Upperman matchup, which is going to feed families. And by that, I mean our families. We are literally a week and a half away. It's going to be awesome.
So those are the UC top 5 on the boys' side. Pickett County at 5, Cookeville at 4, Jackson County at 3, Stone Memorial is at 2, and the Upperman Bees at the number 1 spots. Those are the UC top 5s on both sides. Let's talk about this girls basketball side. And we mentioned it already when we talked about the UC top 5. The top 4 have just, like you said it, they've kind of separated themselves. And honestly, I said it a little bit earlier today. I could realistically see three state champions. You could see Pickett County win 1A, you could see York Institute win 2A, and you could see Upperman or White County win 3A. And I don't want to discredit Cookeville, but Bradley Central's in 4A. So
Yes.
that's the only problem on that side, because they could very well make the state tournament as well in 4A. All five of those teams, and then you could even throw Smith County in there too. You could throw Clark Range in there,
Mhm.
could all make the state tournament. We literally could have 7 teams in the state tournament.
No question about it. And you know, we say that about Bradley Central, and it is what it is with Bradley Central. But the inverse applies in Class 1A, right? If we're doing this show in Southeast Middle Tennessee, yeah, Moore County's good, but Pickett County's in 1A,
Yeah,
right? And if Pickett County were to go down, the team I think probably does it is Clark Range.
right.
So, you know, and that's not a discredit. That's not to say another team can't beat them. Obviously, these teams could be beaten, but man, the competition level is so high. I know we want to talk about that as well. These are teams who this last couple of weeks said, you want some, come get some.
It's insane.
And the top classes from other states just taking them down. You know, the games that I called, Upperman played number one 6A team out of Florida, the number one 2A team out of Alabama, the number one 5A team out of Arkansas, and just said, you want some, come get some. York faces the number two, I think it is, right, team out of 7A in
Mhm.
Alabama. I mean, that's our 2A school
Right.
going up against the biggest public class in Alabama and going toe for toe with them. I mean, we say it all the time. This is the mecca for high school girls basketball in this country, and they proved it the last couple of weeks. There's not a 2A team in most of these states that could touch York, especially if they had Reese Beatty. There's not a 3A
Yeah.
team that could touch White County or Upperman in these other states. So, and there's not a 4A team in other states that could touch the Cookeville Lady Cavaliers. It is just unbelievable how talented and how well coached these girls basketball teams are in our area.
Of course, we can't forget about Wayne County in the 1A
Very good.
classification.
Very
That
good.
that was the state championship last year in the semifinals with Pickett County, and they're having a great season this year as well. They're 10-2 on the year, and they actually just lost their first 2 games of the year, one to Loretto and then a team out of Alabama in the Loretto Christmas Classic. So, and we know how good Loretto is. We've seen them beat Smith County. We just saw Cookeville beat Loretto. So Loretto also a very good team in the 2A classification. But so the top 4 really, really good. We've established that. And you've just said it. They'll go and play anybody. I mean, Pickett County was in this tournament over in Knoxville where they had to play Morristown East, Farragut, and Knox Webb, 2 4A teams and a Division 2 opponent in 2A. They dominated Farragut. Farragut's a good basketball team. Beat White County earlier this season. Cookeville has a win against them, and now Pickett County has a win against them. They were close against Morristown East, which already has a win against Upperman. And then they just controlled Knox Webb, which just were runners up in that Greenville tournament, which was absolutely stacked. You look at York's schedule. York's schedule is insane. And,
It's
and you can
unbelievable.
really go down the top 5 and look at the schedules and just say how insane they are, because they are. But York's schedule is ridiculous. I've talked with Coach Green before their games against Cookeville and then their game against Bearden this season. And he said, you know what? I was a little worried about the schedule,
Yeah.
even if we had Reese
So was
available.
I.
And they're 10-5, and
Yep.
they're playing, and it's not like they're getting blown out. They're playing in these games. They have a win against Knox Catholic. They have a good win against Coalfield. They've got good wins on top of being playing in these close losses as well. So the schedules, and you got to give a tip of the cap to all these head coaches, because it's got to be tough to schedule when you are going to win a lot of these games a lot of the time. So some of these teams outside of the area don't want to play you. And so they're just going to go play the best teams in the state, and they're going to go beat the best teams in the state. So I give a tip of the cap to a lot of the head coaches in our area.
Absolutely. A ton of respect. And that's the reason why these teams are so good in our area is they prepare, they play the right way, they're well coached, and they just the tradition is so ingrained in these communities. And you know, you talked about Pickett County. The Webb win is unbelievable. The
Hmm.
Sparta win over Bearden, a great win. Upperman's win over the team out of Florida was a great win. Against some of the best teams in the Southeast, our teams are going toe to toe and hanging with them. And I agree. And I'll be flabbergasted if we don't have at least one state champion out of our area. But the
Yeah.
potential for
Yeah.
multiple, you know, last year we got to call 2 state championship games, nearly got to call 3.
Yep.
Really would love to have 3 cracks at it this year.
And I didn't even mention Cookville's schedule as well.
Yeah,
They've played
please.
top 3 or 4 teams in the 2A classification. They've beaten Loretto. They've beaten McMinn Central, who only has one loss this season. They've beaten Farragut on the road. They've played Knox Webb and probably should have won that ball game. And then obviously they just beat a Watertown team that looks a lot better
Yeah,
than they were a year ago.
and I will stump for Cookeville in this respect because the murmurings are out about, well, these other teams are playing really good opponents, and that is true. And there's no doubt about that. Cookeville did that within the state by going to Gatlinburg, right?
Yeah.
They didn't go to Florida and play some of these teams, so we're more familiar. The Watertown team tournament, listen, if they didn't win that, we were going to have a problem. We understood that.
And they won it running.
Correct.
Away,
and they won it easily. But the tournament out in Gatlinburg, where they did take a couple of losses.
Yeah. After beating a really good Loretto team.
Yeah, those are talented opponents out
Yeah.
there. So location doesn't matter. They still tested themselves with one tournament the way most teams do. And then you have your fun tournament that just happened to be an hour down the road instead of 500 miles.
Yeah, it makes it a little easier. Yeah, they beat Loretto and then they lost to Moore County, very good 1A team, then lost to Lincoln County as well. So it's 2 very, very good teams down in Gatlinburg before winning the Watertown championship. Reese Beatty, she is coming back for York Institute, and we just talked about it. They're 10-5 on the season. They're just now going to get into district play. Now, the interesting part here for York Institute, we just saw the Watertown team. They've got a really nice player, Macy Brillia. They've got some good pieces around her, and she's the post player for Watertown. They're much improved from a year ago. Obviously, Smith County is playing some good basketball as well. So there is kind of this now race for the 1 and 2 seed in the district, and obviously Reese is going to try to get back as soon as she can, and that's depending on up to her, and then obviously doctors and everything too. But it's going to be a tightly contested race for the 1 and 2 seed in this district.
It absolutely is. And what happens without Reese is the margin for error disappears for York, right? Now you can't play poorly and have Reese Beatty bail you out against a Smith County or against a Watertown. Remember those, like that region tournament game against Smith County last year where York took the air out of the ball, which York has a propensity to do. At least they have in years past. We'll see if that continues in play or not. I think that's easier to do when Reese Beatty is holding the basketball.
Right.
They don't have that margin of error this year now, where you're going to have multiple girls who have to show up to beat Watertown. Show up certainly to beat Smith County. So I still do look at York as a pretty nice favorite in this district, and they can drop one, but it's not going to be as easy to just steamroll through this district in the regular season the way that it has the past couple of years because of the quality that these other teams are rising to in the district.
Jackson County is also nothing to scoff at this season. I just remember looking at them. I think they only have 1 loss so far on the season. So that Jackson County team is also going to be a team to reckon with coming up in this district a little later on. Sparta, let's talk about them because they've been playing some really good basketball as well. And it's a team that we expected to be at the top of the classification in 3A. They have proved that so far. The win over Bearden solidifying that, and then going down to Florida and winning a couple of games down there. The Sparta team's got a lot of talent, obviously led by Ava Jones. Bella Winningham has been playing some really good basketball. Gracie Clark was the most improved player a year ago and is a very good basketball player. They've got talent up and down this roster and have been playing some good basketball.
They do. They're complementary. We've talked about that. You've got the point guard with Grassley, you got the lockdown defender with Clark, you've got the shooter with Winningham, you've got the big with Jones. Losing Selby, Ashlyn Selby's going to hurt. And that's really unfortunate. That being said, they're certainly a team that's more than talented enough to compensate for that. I have one concern, right? I had one concern with Pick is if they get the depth question. I got one concern with Sparta. Going back to last year. Hurt him in the region championship game, hurt him badly in the sub-state game. Fouls. They have got to be able to avoid fouls. And this is an aggressive basketball team. Ava Jones, when she gets up and is blocking shots, it is aggressive. And certain officials call that differently than other officials. Now, the region tournament's going to be in our backyard this year. It's not going to be at Tullahoma. We'll see if that is a benefit to a White County or not. The White County people will say, no, the officials here hate us. I get it. That just comes with the territory. But that's my only concern because they have a matchup nightmare in Ava Jones. Yeah. There are very few teams who can match up with Ava Jones inside, especially when you couple that with some knockdown shooters on the outside as well. So This is a White County team that now has the signature win that they didn't have before the Frank's Christmas Shootout. They chalked that one on the board, and they should be feeling really good heading into district play on a district that proved it last year, right? You cannot take any nights off in 7 AAA, any nights off in 7 AAA. And this is a White County team that I think is poised to make some significant noise.
Well, and that's the next thing I wanted to talk about. Is pretty much this 7 AAA district. These next two teams are in this district in Livingston Academy and Cumberland County. Livingston 10-5 on the year, 1-3 in their last 4 games, but have played some really good teams. Played a very good Heritage team, who I actually believe is undefeated still on the season, and played them pretty closely. Then they played a team out of Texas and Barron County, Kentucky. I saw them last year. That's a really good basketball team. And then Providence in Florida, they beat them. So this Livingston Academy team, obviously nothing to scoff at. They've got one of the best players in the area in Ellie Butler, who's averaging north of 25 points per ball game this season. And they're going to be able to make some noise. Obviously, a pretty good head coach as well, and Leslie Riddle, who's gotten the job done before. So this Livingston Academy team, listen, we got our eyes out, we got our feelers out. We know they're still out there.
And they have a 2,000-point score
Yeah.
in the form of Ellie Butler. So that happened a couple of weeks ago. That's a huge accomplishment for Ellie, and she's playing really good ball. And when you have a girl who can go out there and give you 30 in a given night, we know they're going to be able to play good defense. And you mentioned Leslie Riddle. She's so good at making those adjustments. This is a Livingston team that in a district where Sparta and Upperman will take the headlines, that's the team you don't want to see. And that's a team, let's say everything goes chalk and they're the 3 seed in the region tournament. Thanks for coming out, 2 seed, whoever it is, out of District 8. Thanks. It was a good season. They're going to beat you, right? That's why this district is so good, because in nearly every other district, it's certainly a top 2 team and wins a lot of districts. And they may do that in this one, right? All you have to do is get one win that people don't think you're going to get, and all of a sudden you're right there, and we're having tiebreaker scenarios. So Ellie Butler playing as good a basketball as any, and it's a Livingston team that I'll echo what you said. Certainly have an eye on what's going on there in Hogeye Country.
Cumberland County, 7-7 on the season, but picked off Gatlinburg Pittman last weekend. A heck of a win, 50-42. That was in the Smoky Mountain. I guess they call that the Winter Classic, since it's after Christmas. So they have the 2 that are in Gatlinburg, one before that Cookeville played in, and then the one after that Cumberland County played in. Beat them on Friday, 50-42. Ended up losing in the championship game to a team out of Kentucky. But this Cumberland County team, we know they've got some really nice players. 7-7 on the year. Obviously, head coach and Randy Herring now in his first season. Seems like they're starting to figure some things out here.
Absolutely. And I look at both Crossville schools, Cumberland County and Stone. Stone adding Courtney Hendrick back into the mix now. That is a big boost. And for CC, Sydney Wilhite can go. And I'll echo what Goose said. He said Aaliyah Hawkins is one of the more underrated players in our area. She is really, really good. We know she's great defensively, but she has some offensive prowess to her too. So it's a Cumberland County team. Again, if they're your 4 seed or if Stone is your 4 seed, capable of beating a district champ. And they're going to be capable of beating anybody in this district on any given night. Sydney Wilhite is rapidly ascending in this state among players. She already has 1 D1 offer, and it may not be her last. So Coach Herring in his first year, he's also going to get his footing under him a little bit, right? What are the things that he wants to do? And the team has to, and the team, as they start buying in and kind of figuring out what that looks like, they'll continue to get better.
And I know we didn't talk a lot about Stone Memorial. Their schedule also
unbelievable,
absolutely ridiculous. So they're going to be battle tested once they get into district play as well. I mean, their schedule is actually insane, as are a lot of the teams in our area. Some key games that we have coming up, both broadcast-wise, non-broadcast-wise. This one is a broadcast game coming up on Saturday, and it involves 2 of the top 5 teams. Pickett County traveling to Cookeville on Saturday. We'll have broadcast coverage of it. Really looking forward to that. Could be a really good opportunity for Pickett County. Could be a really good opportunity for Cookeville. Whoever wins that game picks up a quality win, and that will obviously hold a lot of weight in the UC Top 5 coming up next week. Smith County hosting Cannon County, another good opportunity for Smith County to pick up a quality win. And then York Institute is at Stone Memorial on Tuesday. A good opportunity for York to pick up a win at Stone on Tuesday. Good opportunity for Stone to pick up a win against York. Those final two, not broadcast games, just that first one a broadcast game. But those are three games that we're really looking towards of what could be maybe some UC top five implications coming up
Yeah,
here next week.
absolutely. Picking at Cookeville. It's the high school basketball game of the week. I just did that because that's maybe the most fun non-district game
Mhm.
we've had on the board between two of our
Yeah.
teams. Certainly, early on in a non-district game, that's going to be a lot of fun. Both games had the potential to be a lot
Yep.
of fun, boys and girls. So we'll be keeping a close eye on that one.
All right, let's switch gears, talk about the boys' side. Let's first talk about Upperman. We talked about it a little bit in the UC top five, and you said it. They got their pass with the loss to Stewart's Creek. It has been a tough last few games for them. Even in the win against Hickman County, they had to grind it out. It was
Yeah.
not a pretty win whatsoever. They had to grind that game out, and they got a little bit of help from Hickman County as well. Their best player goes out with an apparent injury late in the first half. He was hobbled in the second half, still played through it, and actually played pretty well. And then their second best player was limited due to foul trouble in the second half as well. So, they get the win there. They lose to Stewart's Creek. They've got some opportunities, though, coming up here Friday and Saturday in two games that they should win to get back on track.
Yeah, it's a team that's clearly battling some stuff. I
Yeah.
mean, you said it on air at the Hickman County game, and they just don't have the legs right now. And the things that we've seen, that tournament in Florida, again, get your knives out. I mean, you can do anything. It was, except in the last game where they couldn't do anything, but the other team could. I mean, you can barrel into people, truck them. I mean, all forms of contact are legal in the state of Florida on a hardwood basketball floor.
They had a shot clock, too.
They had a shot clock too. I have thoughts on the shot clock. Um,
Let's hear those thoughts.
sure. So it's different than everybody else who was down there from what I saw. I don't think it mattered at all from a broadcaster perspective. Now, and what I mean by that is I think every team that won was going to win with or without the shot clock, and every team that lost was going to lose with or without the shot clock.
Right.
Now, in some ways, it may have helped the Upperman girls because they are so looking for the best possible shot that sometimes they pass up pretty good shots.
Hmm.
And they didn't do that with the shot clock. They would shoot them, and more times than not, because they're really good shooters, they'd go in. And we saw them take a little bit of an uptick offensively down there. But I do think the hate for it is overblown. It
I would love to see a
There
shot.
were a couple of like these things are being run by random volunteers.
Yeah,
Most of them
right.
are like college
That's. I think
age,
that's the main reason you don't see it.
and people always say, "Well, we can't get shot clock operators." There were a couple of times where the shot clock got off. They'd stop it, reset it real quick, and go right back to playing. It was not a huge deal, and that was without super, shot clock professionals on the screen, on the scene. It didn't matter. So I think you could put it in relatively easily. It was a little small, just on top of, probably isn't even that expensive, to be honest with you. I think you could put them in and it'd be fine. I don't feel strongly about the shot clock one way or the other. My personal feeling is the good teams are good teams, the bad teams are bad teams, the average teams are average teams, and whatever set of circumstances you put on those teams and on those coaches, they'll adapt in the ways that they can. Anyway,
And we
yeah,
fortunately don't have any coaches, at least in recent memory, that are just going to hold the ball
no,
for 2-3 minutes of possession.
no. Contrary to popular belief, we do not.
Yeah. I did have one of those in Missouri one time, and I
Those
lost
are
my
very
mind.
annoying.
That was insane. It was a whole 6 minutes.
Yeah, we've seen that a few times, and it goes viral every time. We
Yeah.
don't see that. Now, I say all that to say, we all understand this is a really good basketball team for Upperman.
Yeah.
And they've got a player who's playing as well as any sophomore I have ever seen.
Mhm.
I mean, he's freaking nuts. Ty Cobb is freaking nuts. And he is a problem for every opponent. The book is out on him, and it does not matter. His mid-range game is really good. He's hitting a lot of threes this year. He's getting to the free throw line. He's as good as it gets, and as long as he's on the floor in white and gold, they're going to have a chance to win every basketball game that they play.
The other team that's going to be battling with them, the Stone Memorial team, this game's coming up shortly,
Yeah.
January 10th. We'll have broadcast coverage of it. This is still Memorial team. They're the number 2 team in the UC top 5. They've got Cade Caps, who's averaging 32 points per ball game. Jack Cordell has really become a nice second option for this offense. And this still Memorial team that was honestly had a lot of question marks coming into this season outside of having one of the top players in the state in Cade Caps on the team, and then Jack Cordell coming in because they just lost so much to graduation. I think it was 7
Yeah.
seniors that they lost last year. They're playing some really good basketball right now. It helps when you've got a nice coach and Coach Caps as well.
Absolutely. Having Caps is a big boost. The thing that struck me when I called Stone's game against Loretto, the length of Stone Memorial.
Mhm.
They're not
Yeah,
the tallest basketball team
right.
in the world, but
They're
they're
all
very
about
lanky.
6'3" and
Yeah,
long.
and they're very lanky, right? They just
Yeah.
disrupt, and I think that's a big asset for them. And you have probably the best get a bucket guy
Mhm.
walking on 2 feet in this state in the form of Cade Caps. You combine those two things, and then you got a great option B, so to speak, with Jack Cordell, who's good enough to be your number 1 if Cade gets into foul trouble.
Mhm.
Jack can give you 20 points. And so you've seen this team be able to compete with everybody, right? They're not getting housed. And that's the sign of a really solid basketball team. Do they have the highest, we talk about this all the time. Can you their C game, what does it look like? Okay, we can have a discussion about that, but their A game's pretty darn good. And their A game is as good as anybody in this class. That's does not have a Fulton from last year. That's
Mhm.
just a team where it's like, can we beat them? Maybe, but we're going to have to play perfect. And they're going to
Yeah.
make a lot of mistakes. That team
Yeah.
doesn't exist this year in this class. So this is a Stone team that's going to be dangerous every night. And I certainly could see a path where these two teams, Stone and Upperman, play each other, district championship, region championship, and both of them could make the state tournament if things fall right in that sub-state round.
I think I can also confidently say the Mr. Basketball will be coming out of 7 AAA this year.
Oh, it freaking better. If you think you've seen me go crazy, and
Because he should have won it last year
and for
after
sure,
watching
for sure.
Bolton play.
And we'll leave the Ty versus Cade debate for people who want to get in trouble with them. We're not going to participate in that one because both of them are awesome, and that's my opinion. Both of them are awesome. They're different players. They're both freaking awesome, and it's just a joy to watch them play basketball. And how lucky are we that they're both playing at the same time in the same area, and we're going to get to see them play against each other again. Awesome.
Mike Johnson commenting in along with the shot clock, making a pretty good point. If you want the
That's it.
basketball, go get it. He says you just
100%.
go take it from them.
Well, the teams that put it on their hip for 6
Right.
minutes, go step out towards them.
Yep, go play defense.
And if you can't do that, then that's on you as well.
Yep.
Great point. It's a great point.
Jackson County suffering their first loss of the season. Close game in Florida to a team out of Florida. They ended up getting a win after that as well. But this Jackson County team still playing some really good basketball. They're coming back. They get an interesting game coming up with Pearl Cone coming up. One that we'll be looking forward to. That'll be in Gainsborough. So that's one that we're watching out for. And this Jackson County team, again, we kind of thought that they would have a good chance to be a really good basketball team. They are a really good basketball team.
Well, Will McCrary can ball, and that's a huge boost. And he's a different sort of a player with his size, a walking double-double each and every night. And that Pearl Cone game is interesting because it's a game that if Jackson County wants to make noise, and I mean go on a deep run, it's the kind of team you got to beat because Pearl Cone is not one of the top teams in 2A, but they're a very athletic team, and you
Are they
rev
technically
them up.
still in 4A right now?
They're in 2A basketball. They're in 4A
Are they?
football.
Okay.
It's weird. 99% sure of that. Because Pearl Cone girls came and played York 2 years ago in a sub-state game.
Good point. Yep.
I say that to say you're going to face amped up versions of this Pearl Cone team if you get into sub-state, if you're Jackson County, and if you get into the state tournament. So can they take care of business? I'm not saying they got to go out and beat them by 20, but can they play well with that style they're going to face with Pearl Cone? Kind of the first time really for Jackson County that we get a look at that because they play a different style than these other teams in 2A do, which could uniquely position them to give those teams trouble. So we'll see if they can get Pearl Cone trouble and come out with a big win and stay undefeated within the state. And that, if you've been watching for a long time, that's one of my go-to things. Undefeated within the state matters a lot to me because I don't care about what you did in Florida. I care about what you do against teams we know about. And right now, Jackson County's undefeated against in-state opponents.
And they're blowing them out too.
Yep.
They haven't played in a lot of close games. They are blowing these teams out. Uh, for as much as we talked about schedules on the girls' side for all of our top 5 teams, and then Stowe Memorial as well, Pickett County on the boys' side has been just as difficult to start this season. They've played Stowe Memorial already. Eagleville is one of the top teams in 1A. Cookeville, obviously, they'll play them coming up on Saturday, and have already played Kingston twice. And again, they've got 4 losses on the season, but this Pickett County team obviously playing some really, really good basketball, but against some really, really tough opponents as well, being in the 1A classification.
Yeah, absolutely. We talked about them earlier. All those points stand. If they can get secondary scoring, that's I think
Mhm.
the biggest thing
Yep.
for them. They got to get some consistency there out of that area, and if they can do it, they're really good. They need Nathaniel Cobb to stay out of foul trouble. I'm not saying he has a fouling problem. I'm just saying him on the floor is a key defensive piece for them.
He
Uh,
defended Aaron Lane really well in the
yeah,
first half against Kingston the other day.
and Kingston is a different sort of opponent, right?
Mhm.
Kingston would be would be ranked on this list if they
Yeah.
were in our coverage area. So, but for Pickett County, respect the schedule too. And Saturday's big opportunity. Then go on the road and get a win over a
Yeah.
4A Cookeville team. Be a great win for them.
Yeah, and it's obviously not going to be a great matchup for them as well. A Cookeville team, very similarly to Stowe Memorial, has a lot of length. They've got shooters all over the place and a lot of athleticism. And obviously, Cookeville, coming off of the 3 losses down in Florida, they're going to be looking for a big win coming up on Saturday. Clay County, another team that we're keeping our eyes on, 7-2 on the season. Seems like they're starting to find their rhythm as well. They've won 3 games in a row. I actually saw them against Meigs County as getting ready for that Pickett County game. Absolutely shot the lights out of the basketball. Nate Adams, tremendous basketball player. Nolan Adams played really well, but Lance Burchett was playing really well. This Clay County team, and they play Pickett County coming up on the 10th as well. January 10th is going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, it is. What a night.
Um, that is going to be a huge matchup on the boys and on the girls' side too, but especially on the boys' side. This Clay County team, they can create some noise here in 1A.
And we had a discussion there at that 5 spot between them and they're going to knock. Are they going to knock in there into that 5 spot? I like the makings of this Clay County team because I think they're going to be able to play defense in the district really well. I think they're going to be able to defend pretty multiply depending on what their opponents have. I'm excited to watch them in Pickett County play because last year was the first year
They
that
hate
Pickett.
each other too.
It's so good. It's so much fun. And it's 2 good coaches, and they're just
Yeah.
different, right? It's just different. I love that rivalry so much. And so Clay's hungry to swing it. Right? They want to get that back on their side, the edge in the rivalry.
Mhm.
So I think that gap is closer than many may think because I think Clay County's better than a
Yeah.
lot of people think. And Nate Adams, we know the caliber of athlete he is, but it's not just him there for Coach Edwards.
So here's what's coming up on the boys' side that we're looking forward to. Pickett County against Eagleville in a rematch, expecting them to play a little bit better this second time around. That'll be at Pickett County on Friday, and then they travel to Cookeville on Saturday. Tomorrow or on Friday, we've got 2 games. Upperman is playing Franklin County? No, that's not right. That's on
Lenore
Tuesday.
City on
Lenore
Friday.
City. Then they get
Creekwood.
Creekwood on Saturday.
Yes.
Pickett County will host Eagleville on Friday and then at Cookeville on Saturday. Those are all broadcast games coming up Friday and Saturday.
Is it like a huge homecoming for you when you go to Birdstown? Is that are you like see, because
If I,
I'm not like I did the Pickett games, and I haven't done many Pickett games because Casey's done them all, but he went off to
right.
Florida and he's
Yeah.
sunbathing there and all that stuff. So I went to Pickett, and typically, not to toot my own horn, but when I walk in, people will be like, "Hey, what's up?" They'll greet me, and certain cities it's a little more razzing, and certain cities it's no, well, Pickett County was like, "Where's Casey?" That's the only thing that matters. Where's
Yeah.
Casey? And I was like, this is a humbling experience from our friends in Birdstown. I'm just curious because you did some time. Nobody was
Mhm.
listening to it, but you
Yeah.
did some time there. Gotta get my shot in.
Well, you guys weren't doing them, so they weren't
Well,
listening to them.
true. But then they had to call us because we're the only ones worth anything.
That's right.
If you know, you know. But I'm just curious. Like, are they like Jacob's here? Let's freaking go, or not? When you go into Birdstown.
Still got some good relationships up there.
Okay.
In Birdstown.
Are you doing the game on Friday?
I will be.
How about that?
We'll be there.
How about that?
Now, the reception when Casey is there too is obviously much bigger.
It's like We ain't getting a
He's
ring.
he's big
I
man
know
on
that. We
campus.
didn't get a ring. My
We
mom must have got lost in the mail.
we very much enjoy doing Pickett County
Yes.
basketball. We very much enjoy it. That's going to do it for us tonight. It's good to talk basketball again. We'll have more weekly conversations on the UCR Basketball Show presented by Fire and Vine. Again, the two broadcast games Friday, two broadcast games on Saturday. We'll have more coming up on Tuesday as well. And then it's pretty much fully into district play starting next week and especially on January 10th. That's Noah McKay. I'm Jake.